Good evening, folks, and welcome to the live stream. I hope you're all very well this evening. Let's see who we have on tonight. We have, if I go to the top, we have Chianti and Fava Beans. I love the name. I eat his liver with a nice Chianti, with Fava Beans and a nice Chianti. We have Mark Teffler. Great to see you, Mark. Colin, great to have you on. We also have Chatty Rat. Great to see you. We have Norflinger, great to see you. John O'Sullivan, great to have you on once again. Killer, thanks for moderating. We have also WNG Fan. Lenan, great to have you on. Ronnie, great to see you. We also have CGM, hope you're well. Ed Stacey, great to see you. We have News Channel, great to have you on. Hope you're well tonight. Who else have we got? Suzanne, great to see you. We have Mark Conservator, great to have you on. Mega Hairy Bum, great to see you too. We have Tiny Demolition Lover, hope you're well. And we have Draconic, great to see you, Draconic. Lots of people coming on now. We have Freckle Bunny, we have Number 3, great to see you. Monkey86, great to see you. Hopefully you can't hear that. There's a thunderstorm outside my window. Ministerian, great to see you. Casper, great to see you too. Hope you're well. And so many more. Hope we're up to 283 viewers. So remember, guys, to smash the like button. And hope you enjoyed the stream tonight. Hope you had a good weekend. And I hope you enjoyed the Sunday brunch. We have some interesting guests for next Sunday. We're hoping to record it some of the next days. So I hope you can make that on Sunday as well. Have some more information on Friday probably, but of course the topic of the week is the pound. Can I say thunder? There was pound, the Labour conference, of course, and what Keir Starmer has done, and of course the implosion of the Conservative Party. Well, maybe not the Conservative Party, but the government. I think it's going to implode unless something drastically happens. Italy voted Tory, or if you want to call them Fratelli d'Italia, the Brothers of Italy party, a fascist party, and let's call a spade because it's a fascist party. They have jettisoned some aspects of fascism. They have maintained other aspects of fascism. So if anyone tells you no, they're not a fascist party, well, they still maintain some of the ideology. Now, are they like the fascist party of the 1930s? No, they're not. They have evolved somewhat, but they still hold on to those ideals, a lot of those ideals. And the fact that if you look at the logo of the Brothers of Italy party, if you look at the logo, it contains a flame of the Italian flag, the tricolour flame, and this is a symbol of the old fascist party that came out, that that was formed just after World War II, and contained members. This is insane. Contained members, senior members of the party, who had been members of Mussolini's government. So when Giorgia Meloni joined the party in, I think, 1992, there were still members who had been part of Mussolini's government. Okay, so that's just, there's a direct line to Mussolini there, in a sense. But I'll talk about that later on the stream. Freckle Punny, thanks so much for that super chat. Quartan gives Truss a weak pound. That's funny on so many levels, because the pound isn't doing too well. I think it was Chris Phillip. I don't remember what position he has in the government, or if he has a position in cabinet at the moment. Tory MP, who was cheering on, look, the pound has rebounded, as it then a few minutes later crashed further. This was on Monday. But there are allegations, there are rumours that Liz Truss and her Chancellor are a lot closer than just cabinet ministers or ministers of state. yeah, something is going on. Something has been going on between the two of them. She isn't just fucking over the country. It's even also members of the party, allegedly, of course. You says Italy always a soap. I don't take much notice anymore. Look, there may be some good news that I'll point to later in the stream, coming out of Italy. There are a lot of bad news following, the election of a fascist party, but there may be a silver lining there, which I'll talk about later. Waiting for more pound puns to come from chat. Yes, I think we're going to see a few tonight. But first of all, I want to talk about the Labour conference, the good, the bad, and the ugly. It says here, Keir Starmer in his party conference. So this is just a summary of the developments, and I'll go into a bit more detail in a moment. It says here, Sir Keir Starmer in his party conference speech in Liverpool said Labour would invest more in the NHS, but the damage done by the Tories means that this time the rescue will be harder than ever. He says Labour will also set a target to get home ownership up to 70%. It's currently 65% in England. Starmer said Labour would set up, and I'll get to this in a moment, the Great British Energy Company, a new company within the first year of government. It would take advantage of the opportunities for clean power, and would be publicly owned. This is very interesting. So we'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. Labour Party unveiled its plan in Starmer's speech to set up a state-owned Great British Energy Company. It said many European, Asian and American companies have public generated companies like EDF in France and Vattenfall in Sweden, which partner with the private sector to increase capacity and build clean energy at scale. The TUC and the CBI both welcomed the proposal. So the TUC obviously representing unions and the CBI representing business owners. So both of them are on side. They think it's a good idea. And I've been saying this before, if the government control the generation of the energy, then they can set the price themselves. So this would be a win-win for businesses and a win-win for consumers, because the government could set the price of energy very low, which would benefit both consumers and businesses. And if it's focused on renewables, then you're protected from shocks like a war with Russia, or problems in the Middle East, or problems in Asia. Magic, thanks so much for that super chat. Sod home ownership. How about some social housing? Yeah, just to go back to, that's a very valid point. Most people can't afford their homes. This 65% is current. This is actually a lot higher than I thought it would be. But I would imagine this is the older generation. The majority will be the older generation. Like young people, a majority of young people are renting. They don't own their own homes. And most young people would like to get out of renting and maybe buy a home if possible. So you need to build new housing. Maybe they'll talk about it in more detail later. But yeah, I agree. There needs to be a plan to build affordable housing. Generation rent can't continue like this. I think there was some data showing that back in 1997, so when the Labour Party last won, well, the last major win for the Labour Party, or when Tony Blair won power for the first time, the average deposit on a home, was about £5,000. Now it's over £100,000. So how are people supposed to save up that amount of money? Seems £100,000 seems a lot, even at today's standards. But yeah, so there needs to be more council houses built. There needs to be more social housing, and it has to be integrated. It has to be integrated with services. So no more building tower blocks outside the city. You need to build social housing, and with the facilities that go along with that. So build hospitals nearby, or them near hospitals, supermarkets, shopping centres, libraries, swimming pools, things like this, public services that are necessary, and build communities like that. But there needs to be a real push for social housing. So many young people can't get on the property ladder and will never be able to. Thanks for that, Majik. It goes on to say Labour MP Rupa Hug, I think I'm pronouncing it correctly, has offered Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng sincere and heartfelt apologies after her ill-judged comments describing him as superficially black. Hug has had the Labour whip suspended. The MP said, "I have today contacted Kwasi Kwarteng to offer my sincere and heartfelt apologies for the comments I made yesterday at Labour's conference fringe meeting. My comments were ill-judged, and I wholeheartedly apologise to anyone affected." That was the right thing to do, so she shouldn't have said that, and it's right that the whip was removed. Now, do you think the whip would have been removed if a Tory MP said the same thing about a Labour MP? Probably not. They're like, no, we'll send you to the House of Lords for saying stuff like that. We've heard horrible comments come out from Conservative MPs over the last number of years, and nothing has happened. Electoral reform is needed, yet Keir won't back it. That's Kieran Buckley. Yeah, thanks so much, Kieran. And I'm going to get that to that straight away almost. The party supports proportional representation, and Keir Starmer doesn't seem to, which is disappointing, at least. But I think if there's a push within the party, he may take it on. I don't think he's a weather vane politician, but I do believe that he can be convinced. And if the party support it, if the public support it, if supporters support it, which that seems to be the case, he'll have to bite the bullet and say, yes, okay, I'm going to include it in the manifesto. See, there's always this concern, and thanks for that super chat once again. I think there's always this concern that within the Labour Party, I don't share this concern, but I sort of understand it, that they don't want to piss off certain voters, or they don't want to say something that will allow the Conservatives to use it as a stick to beat the Labour Party. And PR is one of them. The Tories and the Tory supporting press, the Tory supporting press can easily turn around and say, oh, they want to make it difficult for people to vote. We have this wonderful voting system. Why change it? Why break something, why fix something that's not broken? DC, thanks so much for that super chat. Hi Max, what are your feelings on the ground in Italy after the election of the new leader? What are the consequences for the EU and Italy? Yeah, so I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a moment. I'll just touch on it quickly. It's bad news. It's bad for the EU as well. Meloni is anti-EU. It's likely that there will be some conflict between her and Ursula von der Leyen and the European Commission. That's to be expected from anti-EU parties. Many people are very concerned here in Italy about what Meloni will try to do when she's Prime Minister. There's talk of her. Now, I don't know if this is going to happen. I hope this is not going to happen, but there's talk that she may attempt to dissolve gay marriages, say that they're no longer legal. I don't know if that's possible. And one of her first plans may be to ban gay adoption. So children will not be allowed to be adopted by gay couples. She's one of these religious freaks, which is ironic because she's not married and she has a kid. Ask your local priest, is that okay? They probably would say, no, it's not. But if she's a politician, then that's fine. Yeah, because we have her ear, or she's batting for our team in a sense. Italexit? No, she's not. She's stupid, but she's not that stupid. So I don't see. There is an Italexit party running, but they got something like 3% of the vote. I don't know if they got their deposit back. Absolute fringe, and they have no real say in. There's no real support for them. Meloni is not talking about leaving the EU or leaving the euro. This one benefit of Brexit is that it quietened a lot of the Eurosceptic voices in Europe after 2016. Well, shortly after 2016, a lot of them said, "Oh, look, Britain is leaving, and we can leave too." And then, as they started to see the damage Brexit is doing, a lot of them pulled back. The League Party, for example, run by Salvini, which is a far-right, anti-immigrant, xenophobic party, they changed their tune somewhat on Brexit. They had originally some years ago asked for a referendum on both EU membership and the euro. They've stopped talking about that because they understand, look at what's happening in Britain, and it's very difficult to sell that. Has Mrs. Max's pressure lowered since the results? She's very concerned. One of the positives out of all of this is that Meloni needs the support of a number of smaller parties. One of those being the League Party, and there have now been called for Salvini to resign as leader of the League Party. The League Party got a very bad result at these elections. And I think what's actually happening here in Italy is that you're not really seeing a switch to the right. You're seeing people who used to vote for right parties voting for different right parties, so right-wing parties. So what I mean by that is people who would normally vote for the League Party, which is a far-right party, they switched their vote to Brothers of Italy. Some people who may have many people who were not very happy with the current government decided to throw their lot behind Brothers of Italy as well. Maybe to give the government a bloody nose. Many people were upset about the coalition government. And look, there's a possibility that this coalition with Meloni may not last. There are a number of parties inside. The fact that the current leader of the League Party was being asked to resign is not good for government cohesion. So we'll have to wait and see. They have until sometime in October to form a government, so we're not going to see her as Prime Minister for some time yet. But it's likely that, like many Italian governments, it doesn't last the full session. Anyway, thanks for that super chat. David Lammy, the Shadow Foreign Secretary, called for the creation of a special tribunal to prosecute the Russian President Vladimir Putin for his crime of aggression. Sharon Graham, the Unite General Secretary, said Keir Starmer's speech was a start, but he should be bolder. And water companies could go to jail if they deliberately mislead investigations into water pollution. Jim McMahon, the Shadow Environment Secretary, told a conference he mentioned the new penalties as he used his speech to say that the next Labour government would finally hold water bosses personally accountable for their failures to stop sewage discharges. No, sorry, Jim, you should actually nationalise them. First you say, do something about it or we'll nationalise you, and then nationalise them. That's what you need to do. In Scotland doesn't have this problem because Scottish Water is run by the government. It's publicly owned. So there isn't this problem. You're not seeing raw sewage being pumped into rivers and lakes in Scotland. Why? Because it's publicly owned. There's no profit incentive. These companies are pumping raw sewage into the sea because they can. It's cheaper. There's no government holding them to account. There's no punishment there. So yes, I understand the idea of we're actually going to hold the bosses personally liable. That means that they would go to jail which is a massive incentive not to do this, because, you know, CEOs don't like going to prison, even though some of the prisons are quite luxurious. They still don't like going to prison. It's bad for their it's bad for their CV. Okay, so it's a case that it's not. But I would actually go further. It's not a case of just putting these people in prison. Nationalize the industry, and then you don't have the problem in the first place. You know, prevention is better than cure. So I want to move on. There's, as was brought up on the chat, proportional representation. So this is delegates last night voted in favour of changing the voting system for general elections in the UK if Labour is elected. A motion calling on any future government to replace first past the post with proportional representation was passed. So let's hear how that went.
Delegates last night voted in favour of changing the voting system for general elections in the UK if Labour's elected. You may remember we looked at that at the programme yesterday. A motion calling on any future Labour government to replace first past the post with proportional representation was passed. Sir Keir Starmer said that electoral reform wasn't a priority for him, but Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham praised the decision.
This system that we've got down there doesn't work for everyone, everywhere equally. Some voices and some places have more sway there than others. And this is the thing that we've got to change. I think the party's made a historic decision today to talk about electoral reform and move towards proportional representation. Because in my view, if you had a Commons elected on that basis, you would get a different way of the regions working.
He's correct. So much better representation of constituents. You would end Tory rule. The Tories would have to form coalitions if they wanted to run the country, and they'd have to water down their extremism. Generally, extremists don't get into power. Now, there are some exceptions. Look at what's happened in Italy, but if these coalitions generally will not last if the elements within them are too extreme. There is a sort of moving to the centre after a government has been formed. So the extremist elements, if they want some sort of power, they have to keep quiet most of the time. They're normally given some sort of role where they don't have any real power, make them the agriculture minister or transport minister or something like that, the interior ministry or the home secretary or the defense or finance. They go to the main party. They go to the principal party in the coalition. A bit like what happened with the Conservatives and the Lib Dems back in 2010. But you would have smaller parties, and the Conservatives would split up into different parties. You'd have probably a Brexit-style party. You would have a moderate party within the Conservatives, maybe a pro-European party within the Conservatives. So it would eventually split up into different factions, because MPs or the factions within the party would realise, well, we can actually gain seats on our own. And we can form a government with other parties later. You could have a faction where, ex-Tories and ex-Labour would be working together. With the exception of Scotland. We'll touch that later, but you could end up something like that, where you'd have a moderate Tory party. It wouldn't be called the Tories, of course, but it'd be something like that, and moderate, maybe centrist Labour working together. Or you can have a left coalition where you'd have former members of the Labour Party working with socialists or Greens or something like that. So you could end up having progressive coalitions, centrist coalitions, even centre-right coalitions, which would be much better than what's happening at the moment, where you have one party that did not win a majority, but won a majority of the seats, which is completely fucked up. So this is good. Now, Keir Starmer has said that he's not going to support it. I think he just needs pressure applied to him, and I think that's what's going to happen. This is a huge step forward for the Labour Party. If they if the party itself is supporting this, then it's easier for them to apply pressure to the Prime Minister. Now, the only caveat I have to add to this is if Starmer wins a massive majority on the back, not on the back of this, but if he wins a massive majority at the next election, if the majority is pretty big, he may ignore PR. Now, if the majority is quite small, he may be more supportive of PR. Because the other party, I think the Green Party certainly is. I think the Liberal Democrats are supportive of PR. So, if he wins even a reasonable majority and he's supportive of PR, he'll get it through. But my only fear is that if he wins a massive majority, he'll be like, oh, well, we don't need PR anymore. We have our massive majority. And look, I'm not going to be Prime Minister forever. So to hell with the consequences. Let's keep first past the post because it served our purposes in 2024 or whenever. I really hope that's not what happens. I really do hope that he will be supportive of PR. He will eventually come round and he will back it. And when he becomes Prime Minister, fingers crossed, he will, with other parties, first and foremost, push for get it through Parliament. And then you would have new elections under PR and you would see a completely different political landscape. Verti, great to see you on the stream. It's called democracy, but well said. It's called democracy. Greens would do better, I think. Yes, because the Greens won something like 1 million votes at the last election, but they only got, was it 1 or 2 seats? 1 seat, I think, which is not representative of the number of votes they got. So seats would be allocated in a much more proportionate way. 0, yes, it would be good in my opinion. And it's important that there is, it's not like the sort of PR that was offered before. It has to be real PR. It seems like everyone likes the idea of PR except the powerful few actually in power. It's almost like those in power don't like competition. Yes, it's almost like that. PR is the first step regarding a reform. Sugar-free, great to see you on the stream. Let's rejoin the EU. Yes, so let me see if I can... my friend Phantom Power. So this was a little bit disappointing. Not this one, it's a bit short. I think it's this one.
Brexit work. Labour will make Brexit.
This is okay. So I said there was good, there was bad, and there was ugly. Well, let's get to the ugly part here first. The Labour Party, this is what's really weird. The Labour Party in Wales and the First Minister in Wales, who's a Labour First Minister, said that it's important for progressive parties to work together against the Tories. So in Wales, the Labour Party and the other parties work together to do what's best for the people of Wales, because the Tories are not interested in what's best for Wales. But when it comes to Scotland, the Labour Party act in a different way. They're willing to form coalitions with the Conservatives in councils to keep out the SNP. Now, if you look at the SNP, let's park independence for a moment. If you were to compare the Labour Party policies and the SNP, a lot of them would be quite similar. Not all of them, but a lot. The Labour Party, with the exception of independence, they would share more with the SNP than they would with the Tories. I think most people would agree with that. I think even Keir Starmer would agree with that. Now, on a council level, I really don't understand, because this is not on this is not on a national level. It's not on a Scottish parliamentary level. It's not at the level of Westminster, but on a council level, the Tories and the Labour Party work together. I really can't get my head round that. Why? to keep the SNP out. They even say that, to keep the SNP out. But if you share more policies with the SNP, are the policies different on a local level than they are on the Scottish level, on the level of the Scottish Parliament? I honestly don't know. But this is what Sturmer had to say in regards to Scotland.
Labour will make Brexit work. Labour will deliver change. We saw off the threat of fascism and deadly disease together. We built the NHS and the welfare state together. But it also needs the power and resources to shape its own future, whoever is in power in Westminster. And the SNP are not interested in this. For them, Scotland's success in the UK is met with gritted teeth, seen as a roadblock to independence, and so they stand in the way. We can't work with them. We won't work with them. No deal under any circumstances.
Oh, and he got a standing ovation. No deal under any circumstances. Now, is he doing this because he believes it's better? It wins more votes with people in England. Is he doing it because he believes he wants to avoid criticism from the Tories? Or is he doing it because he realises that Scotland is lost to Labour? Labour currently have one MP in Scotland. At the next election, according to polling, they may pick up another 2 or 3. But we're not talking about a return to the days of 10 years ago, when Labour had something like 50 MPs in Scotland. So Sturmer has, in a sense, written off Scotland. And there's no benefit for him in reaching out to the SNP. Now, as I said before, the SNP and the Labour Party would share more in common on policy than they would with the Tories. So the only conclusion I can come to is the Labour Party have given up on Scotland. They realise that there's nothing they can sell. Support continues to drop. They may lose their MP at the next election, and they say, let's focus on England instead. The conference was not very pro-Scottish. There were a few Scots attending, but it was more pro-British than pro-United Kingdom. It was in the sense that it was more individual, how can I say, more pro-English than, in a sense, than pro-British or pro-United Kingdom. To call a spade, I guess. And at this stage, I think the Labour Party has said, okay, we've looked at the numbers, we've looked at what's happened in the past, we're looking at the future. There's nothing we can give to the Scots to win them back. And you notice at the beginning he said he wants to make Brexit work. If you say to the Scots who voted against Brexit, remember back in 2016, the Scots voted against Brexit, and support for Brexit has continued to drop since 2016. You can offer, what do you have on the table? Well, the SNP are offering rejoining the EU, undoing Brexit, and the Labour Party are talking about fixing Brexit, or making it work, actually, making it work. Keir Starmer's own words. So what option would you choose? Making Brexit work or undoing Brexit and rejoining the EU? But of course, there's significant support for rejoining the EU in Scotland, with both people who want to remain part of the UK, but also people who want independence. So the Labour Party need to present something, and they have nothing. So I think this is Starmer writing off Scotland, because there's no point in doing deals with the SNP, because it will be used against him, but also it doesn't really benefit the Labour Party because they have no foothold, or very little of a foothold, in Scotland. Magic, thanks so much for that super chat. 38,264 votes for every Tory MP elected, 50,836 for every Labour MP, 25,000 for every SNP MP, 865,707 for every Green MP. Thanks for that super chat, and that clearly demonstrates the problem with first past the post. 38,000. We'll leave Scotland for a moment, but 38,000 for every Tory MP. Can someone do the calculations? How many Greens should there be if per million? So per million voters, the Tories get how many and the Greens get 1. That's insane. 1 and a bit. Okay. 38 into 1 million. 38,000 into 1 million. That's insane. And that's why it's so important that there is a change of the system. Max Cipher, thanks so much for that super chat. English nationalism drives Scottish independence. In a sense, yes, because you're looking at the Labour Party conference. You had the look. I'm not criticising them. I'm just saying what's actually happening on the ground. You have the Labour leader saying we're going to make Brexit work, not talking about rejoining the EU, which is, as I said, there's massive support for rejoining the EU in Scotland. The image behind the delegates is the Union Jack, not just the Labour logo or something like that. And at the beginning of the conference, for the first time, they sang the national anthem. Yes, it is in a sense English nationalism. Now, some people will agree with that, some people will disagree with that, but that's the reality. It's not inclusive. Now, they will say it is inclusive because Scotland is part of the Union. But if the majority in Scotland want independence and the majority of in Scotland want to be part of the EU, to undo Brexit, then it's not inclusive. And if you're saying we'd prefer to do deals with the Tories than to do deals with the SNP, who represent Scotland at the moment, they're the biggest party in Scotland, it's nonsensical. Like, can you imagine if he said that about Northern Ireland? He says, we're not going to work with the biggest party in Northern Ireland. Doesn't matter who they are. They're Sinn Féin. Okay, but we're not going to work with them because they want a united Ireland. But people would say, well, that's not... Okay, you can disagree with them, but you should work with them. You should be willing to... If there are policies where you agree, you should be cooperating, collaborating. The Labour Party is saying, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to have any deals. Which is a bit sad, because there are people in Scotland who would hope, there are Labour supporters who would hope that, you'd have two progressive parties working together. But that's not going to be the case. Nats. Anyway, I just wanted to touch on that. Just a bit more on what the Unite Union said about Starmer. Sharon Graham, the Unite General Secretary, said Keir Starmer's speech today was a start, but he should be bolder. In a statement, she said, the real crisis for everyday families in Britain is a crisis of wage cuts, frightening energy bills, and now soaring rents and mortgages. So Keir Starmer's promises for change in today's speech are a start. But Labour still need to be bolder. It must offer a very clear, tangible response to the crisis that people can understand and get behind. Clear blue water has opened up in British politics between Labour and the Conservative government. It's time to make that count. As Labour's Niall Bevan said back in 1953, we know what happens to people who stay in the middle of the road. They get run down. That's all from me for now. Okay. It's true. You need to be bold. And I think following Angela Rayner's speech, which I think was a speech of hope, there was some comedy, of course, included about the Tories and tractor porn and and other such things. Nadine Dorris, always good for a bit of a laugh. But the seriousness behind it was that the dark days of the past need to be replaced with positive days of the future. And, people are looking around them and saying, this is what the Tories represent. Food banks, warm banks, corruption, PPE contracts for friends and donors, a prime minister who wrote the rules and broke them himself. Rules for one group, rules for them. They write the rules and they don't follow the rules, but they want you to follow them. Inflation, which is not affecting the rich and the upper classes, it's affecting ordinary people. The support that's being provided is for the rich and the upper classes, not for ordinary people. Tax cuts for the rich, while people on universal credit are being punished. People are looking around and saying, we don't want this. We want something different. We want some hope. We want something positive. We don't know whether it'll come, but isn't it better to dream than to just stay where we are? And I think it is important that the Labour Party presents something bold. It's important that it's a vision. That's what's most important. A vision of something positive. You can get into detail later on, but as I said before, I said this for years, the Labour Party need to have some sort of vision. This is what we're going to do. Make things better. A brighter future. The ending of the dark days. Something like that. So Starmer delivered his speech. It was an hour long, I think. 59 minutes or something like that. So don't worry, I'm not going to show you the speech. Otherwise you would kill me. Fearless Wolf, thanks so much for that super chat. Scottish Labour died because they became low-calorie Tories. Yes. What's the point in voting for Tory light if you can get Tory full fat? Full fat Tories. And it's the same problem everywhere. You know, when moderates try to copy conservatives, the voters see through this. And the voters, if you're going to vote for a conservative, you're going to vote for a full fat conservative. You're not going to vote for a semi-skimmed conservative. You know, this is why it's a big problem for this. Big problem over this. Well, we need to move further to the right in order to suck up votes. And I'm always skeptical, or I'm always worried when people say that Starmer needs to move to the right. Okay, he needs to think of the Red Wall and he needs to think of Little England voters. I've said that he needs to understand about marginals. He needs to understand what do these marginals want, and he has to keep that in mind. But that should not be the policy. That should not be the vision. We need to keep Little Englanders happy, because the Little Englanders will vote Tory, or they'll stay at home, but they're not going to vote Labour. So you need to present something different. But when it comes to Scotland, I think it's an impossible task unless the SNP mess up in some way, massively. But as I said before, independence is not just the SNP. The SNP is an aspect of independence. And this is what many unionists in England either don't understand or pretend not to understand. They attack Nicola Sturgeon, they attack the SNP and try to present that as an attack on independence. Oh, look, independence can't work because Nicola Sturgeon did something about ferries. Okay, that's not an argument against independence. That's an argument against Nicola Sturgeon. But they will try and present it in that way. Thanks, Fearless Wolf. Lloyd Bell, thanks so much for that super chat. Starmer should ask Scotland what kind of devolved relationship they want to stay in the UK. Brexit is no issue, no benefits to forfeit if reversed. See, the thing is, who is he going to ask? He's going to have to ask the SNP. What sort of relationship Scotland... Now, Starmer has mentioned in the past, I don't know if he still holds on to this, the idea of a federal United Kingdom. That would be better, but I think it's not enough for people in Scotland. People in Scotland, have been burnt for so long by the Tories and Labour governments that they have decided, look, we don't want anything to do with you. We don't want anything to do with Westminster. We would prefer to stand on our own 2 feet. Look, what I would do if I was the Labour Party or the Conservatives would be to say, okay, let's have a referendum. And if Scotland becomes independent, let's allow the option or give the option for Scotland to have a referendum. Oh, well, it's independent Scotland. What we would welcome Scotland back in the future if the people of Scotland decided they didn't want independence anymore. I don't see that happening. Countries generally don't undo independence, but to have a better relationship in the future. I've said before, if you love something, set it free. I love the analogy of the butterfly. If you hold your hand out, the butterfly will land on your hand and it will fly away. It's free to land and it's free to fly away. But if you clench your fist with the butterfly inside, you'll kill the butterfly. You'll damage its wings, and you will destroy the butterfly. So you need to have an approach where you say to the Scottish people, we support you having a referendum. If you decide to have independence, we will work with you on that, because it benefits both sides. This idea of stopping Scotland from becoming independent, trying to hold it back, is just driving more and more people into the arms of those who support independence. It's counterproductive for the union. But we could talk about this all night. Thanks so much, Lloyd, for that super chat. Even inconsequential. Anyway, some response to Keir Starmer's speech on Twitter. It says here, this speech is very Starmer, solid, not very exciting. Though a publicly owned British energy firm, Great British Energy, has legs, it is, but it shows he's done the work. He understands that it's what has to be done and grinds reliably through. There are worse prime ministerial qualities. Sebastian Payne from the FT said, Keir Starmer's Lab 22 conference speech is solid, but crucially it was plausible. For the first time in a decade, it's easy to see both the Labour Party and its leader in power. There's a palatable sense Starmer now believes for the first time he can and will be Prime Minister. Keir Starmer steps into a very large Boris Johnson-shaped hole in the centre of British politics. Pippa says here, snap analysis. Keir Starmer's finished his speech with, as in 1945, 1964, 1997, this is a Labour moment. For the first time in years, the party actually looks and sounds like a government in waiting. There will be difficult times ahead, but he took a big step forward today. Starmer's speech summary, open goal, neatly tucked away. It seems that there's been a big shift since the time of Corbyn. And maybe this is, the planets have aligned. So you have everything against the Tories at the moment. You have currency dropping like a lead balloon. You have a cost of living crisis. You have Brexit. You have all of these things working against the Tories. And the public are tired. They're upset. They're disappointed. And they're angry. And they need to vent and they need to see an alternative. And in a sense, Labour can present themselves as an alternative. Any comment on the Labour files on Al Jazeera? I haven't seen it. I saw that there was a report. I need to sit down and watch it, but I haven't seen it. So thanks so much, FSM is the dog. Thanks so much for that support. But I will definitely... I think it's something I'd like to do with maybe with Alex for the Sunday roast, because there's a lot to talk about there, and it's not just something that we could cover in a video. So it's definitely something that we would need to speak. It'd be great if we could have somebody on to talk about it, a guest to talk about it. Maybe Phil from A Different Bias or someone else. I'm not sure who. If you guys can suggest somebody who you think would be good to talk, by any means necessary, be good for him. He's a supporter of Jeremy Corbyn, so it'd be good to have him on as well. Could Corbyn make a comeback, Max? Claire Sweet. I I don't think so. Not now. Thanks so much, Claire, for that super chat. I don't think Corbyn could come back. What would be necessary is for the Labour Party to collapse. So let's imagine there is a general election. Everyone is thinking that Starmer is going to win it. The Labour Party are going to win it, and they lose. Starmer would be resigning, I think, as the exit polls data is coming in. He'd be forced to resign in disgrace. All of this building up to replace the Tories, and somehow they lost. If that were to happen, then Starmer would be out. And then, people would be saying, oh, well, Jeremy Corbyn was actually able to get, he didn't win elections, but he was able to do better or something like that in 2017, maybe not in 2019. So there would be, I don't see Corbyn coming back as a leader, but somebody who could be, an acolyte of Jeremy Corbyn. We're talking some years away now, so I don't really see this happening, but he could be a kingmaker. He could be someone who could be seen as a figure within the party. But as far as I know, Jeremy Corbyn is an independent MP. He's not a Labour member, or correct me if I'm wrong. He had the whip removed, so I don't know if he's still a member, but he's not he's not a Labour MP, so he would have to have that changed. So it'd have to go through a process of Starmer losing massively, Starmer resigning, a realignment within the party bringing Jeremy Corbyn back in, and Jeremy Corbyn running as the new leader. That's what would happen. And that would have to take some time. It wouldn't happen overnight. But I don't see that happening. I think a lot of people would like to see Corbyn back, but I don't see it happen. I think there are too many steps to take before that could happen. Corbyn was a person, people, nothing like the current Tories. Starmer stood down and let a woman take the top job, as the ladies are proving better, except for Truss. She's a man in drag. Maybe Corbyn was the right man in the wrong time. That's possible. Look, I wasn't I'm not a fan of Corbyn when it comes to Brexit, but as an individual, I think he's a decent man. I think he's a good backbencher, certainly. I don't know if he's the right person to lead the party, though, because leading the party is not just telling people what to do. You need to bring all the different factions together. And I think it was difficult for Starmer... I keep mixing them up. It was difficult for Corbyn to do that. What Starmer did instead was he removed the factions that disagreed with him. So, while Corbyn tried to bring everyone together, that was probably part of his undoing. Because it's like herding cats, okay? The Labour Party is an absolute disaster to unite. Because you have so many different factions, and each of them want internal power. A lot of them are working against the main party, be it on the left or on the right, or on the centre, they would say. So you have multiple factions within the party. Some of them want to win elections. Some of them don't care about winning elections. Some of them want internal power. Others, like the Parliamentary Party, want to win elections. It's an absolute disaster. And if Starmer pulls this off, he'll go down in the history books as one of the greatest leaders of the Labour Party, because he won elections. That's what matters at the end of the day. It's not about how many votes you got or how popular you were within the party. You have to win elections, because then you're able to change policy. Starmer said Labour won't work with the SNP, yet he's happy for Labour to work with the Tories across Scotland councils, denying an independence referendum and vote Labour, get Tory. I think what the Labour Party have decided. Look, I'm not privy to this, but this is just me looking in from the outside. I think the Labour Party have given up on Scotland and see it as there's no benefit working with the Labour Party, the SNP. There's no benefit because it's not about what's good for the people of Scotland, it's what's good for the party. So if they will work with the Tories if they see it as benefiting the party. It's not benefiting the people, because you should be working with parties that are similar to you. You should be working with progressive parties. And what is the other progressive party in Scotland? Is the SNP or the Greens. So if the Labour Party are not working with them, there's a reason. It's because they're not interested in pushing forward policies to help people. They're interested in power. And I think when it on the parliamentary level, the SNP are considered beyond the pale, and there's no value in working with them. You know, they may work together somewhat when it comes to Prime Minister's questions. Maybe they can work as a tag team, but that's not really. They don't see that as something on a political level. It's not something on a level that you definitely won't see that at the after the next election. Verti, thanks so much for that super chat. Phil is useless. No, Phil is great. He doesn't know what the single market means and what it is. So skip Phil, Corbyn and Starmer. Okay. No, Phil is great. Phil has a wonderful knowledge of the Labour Party and proportional representation on a lot of things. So thanks so much for the super chat, but we'll have to agree to disagree. The SNP are not doing their job, and the Scots are finding this out now. Things might change. The SNP are not doing their job. Feels like the Keir Starmer and Liz Truss want Scottish independence, not arguing any reasonable points against it. I think what they're doing is it's twofold. What they're not defending the union because the first step is a referendum. So they're trying to deny a referendum. They're trying to argue against a referendum, and then if the referendum if the decision is upheld, and there is going to be a referendum, then they'll start talking about the union. So there's a reason why they're not talking about the union. It's because there isn't a referendum taking place. There isn't a campaign. So that's why they don't believe in. That's why they're not talking and supporting that's why they don't appear to be supporting the union, or really arguing against independence. They're arguing at the moment against a referendum. The Conservatives said no, there won't be a referendum. There's no need for a referendum. Even the Labour Party are somewhat saying the same thing. A referendum is divisive. A referendum is not. It's not the right time. Their focus is trying to stop a referendum. As soon as that passes, as soon as there's either a referendum going to take place, or if the referendum isn't going to take place, and then at the next election, as the SNP have said, if they're going to run on a platform of independence, then the argument will be about independence and protecting the union. So you'll have the Labour Party and the Conservatives working together. I'm predicting this now. When it comes to Scottish independence and protecting the union, so-called, you'll have the Conservatives and the Labour Party working together. They'll put aside they may even come out and publicly say that we're going to put aside our differences on everything else. We're here to defend the union. This is a pivotal moment in our history. We need to defend the union. And they may actually come out and say, and you may even see, Tory MPs arm in arm with Labour MPs. Now this is, if this does not happen, I'll correct the record, unlike Boris Johnson. But this is what will happen. I believe, in my gut, this is what's going to happen. You're going to have senior members of the Labour Party, senior members of the Conservatives, doing whatever they can to stop independence. The first port of call is to stop the referendum. The second is to stop independence. And it may actually be a bit more aggressive this time because back in 2014, it was on a knife edge. But now, since Brexit, since 12 years of Tory rule, and it doesn't seem that the Tories are going to go away anytime soon. You know, Liz Truss may be removed, but it's likely she'll be replaced by another Tory. I don't think there'll be a general election, because the Tories will just say there's no need. We'll just replace her with somebody else. Nadine Dorris, Mark Francois. So it'd probably be a case where you'll have... I'm sorry to say this. I hope I'm wrong. I truly do hope I'm wrong, that the Labour Party and the Conservatives will not work arm in arm. They shouldn't be working together on anything, pretty much anything. I can't think of anything that they should be working together on, because the Conservatives are not interested in doing things for ordinary people. You can look at their voting record if you don't believe me. Anyway. Well, guys, we're well over the halfway break, so I just want to show you this clip from also. This is about the great British energy company that Starmer wants to set up.
We won't make the mistake the Tories made with North Sea oil and gas back in the 1980s, when they frittered away the wealth from our national resources. Just look at what's happening at the moment. The largest onshore wind farm in Wales. Who owns it? Sweden. Energy bills in Swansea are paying for schools and hospitals in Stockholm. The Chinese Communist Party has a stake in our nuclear industry. And 5 million people in Britain pay their bills to an energy company owned by France. So we will set up Great British Energy within the first year of a Labour government. A new company.
Now, let's leave aside independence in Scotland for a moment. Is this a good idea? Yes, it's a wonderful idea. I think this is a fantastic idea from a political point of view. Now, of course, the devil is always in the detail. But as a political idea, this is dynamite. You know, kudos to whoever had come up with this idea. Great British Energy. You know, I'd love to hear the Gammons criticise that. It has great British in it, great and British in it. You know, what can you wait till you hear that? I'd love to hear the Tories criticise that now. No. Great British Energy is a bad idea. What? Great? You're against great and you're against British. It's a perfect slogan. Great British Energy, but the idea behind it is faultless as well. The idea that we will be in control of the energy we produce. And I like how we focused here on renewables. Renewables are the future. No point focusing on fossil fuels. We need to move faster and faster to renewables. And of course, if you're focusing on renewables, they are renewable. They don't run out. The sun doesn't run out. The wind doesn't run out. So if you focus on this type of technology, on this type of source, and move away from fossil fuels, which are a problem. You know, even if you're producing them yourself, there are accidents. They're not. You know, they can run out. They will eventually run out. There are issues with them. Of course, if you're trying to deal with climate change, you want to move away from fossil fuels. So you produce the energy. The state owns the energy in a sense. It's owned by the country. And then what you can do is you can start putting that money away into a sovereignty fund for when it's necessary. This is what sound government should be doing. If we look at Norway, for example, Norway has been selling the oil, the gas that it produces, and using very little of it itself, and it's been piling up the cash into a sovereignty fund. It's cheaper to buy an electric car in Norway than to buy a petrol or diesel car. Now, somebody in the chat may correct me on that, but that's generally the level of tax is much higher, and it works out. Generally, it works out cheaper to buy an electric car. So, if that's the case, people are plugging in their electric cars at home, or there's massive infrastructure for electric cars. I've noticed online. I'm not following this in a huge amount of detail, but I've noticed online. Chinese companies will roll out their when they're rolling out their fleet of electric cars in Europe, the Chinese companies, their first port of call, the first country they select is of course Norway. They start off in Norway. They test the cars out in Norway because there's a huge amount of support for electric cars in Norway. It makes sense. So it's if there's somebody on the chat from Norway, maybe you can correct me, but generally I think a lot of it is the approach that the state have. The state understand the value of this and they invest in it. The UK has a potential of 25% of Europe's tidal wave and wind, but we can't get it because utilities and government are not investing in the grid. At behest of the oil and gas lobbyists. Well said, no DLC, yes. Like everything, it depends on your mileage and the type of driving. Yes, Norway is a different country, of course. Ireland, I think, is probably one of the perfect countries for electric cars. But unfortunately, it hasn't been. It doesn't have the take up as it should, because it's most of the driving is very short distance. Nuclear is key to the UK energy. My only problem, one of my only problems with that type of energy is the security. Now, under the Tories, who would run these plants? Serco, or whoever donated to the Conservative Party. Send your local MP £10,000 donation, and you'll get a contract to run an atomic power plant. That's a wonderful idea, isn't it? I'm joking, but we're not that far away from what actually happened. So my concern would be who would be running these plants. Would they have won the contract because they're the best, or because they made the biggest donation to the party? What sort of corners would be cut? What about the waste? How would that be dealt with? What about security? What about cleanup if there are accidents? The problem with many times, if it's a private company doing it, they're going to cut corners. They're going to try and save money, and security and protection is normally the first one. So you need both. If you're going to hand it over to a private company, it needs to be extremely well controlled. Not this sort of laissez-faire approach that the Tories have. It needs to be fully regulated, and that's a cost. That's a cost that needs to be passed on to the consumer. Otherwise, you avoid nuclear and you go with renewables. One thing in life I've learned is to not shout at the mirror. Who would run it? Like people who got PPE contracts. That's my concern. Wind and solar is a no-brainer. Nuclear is dangerous and has appalling waste issues. Why is wind and solar even a discussion? Really, if I don't even know how to. I'm tired talking about how we should be focusing on wind and solar. If you can put if they here in Italy, they have mandated all new homes that have roofs need to have solar panels. I think the minimum is 6 kilowatt. 6 kilowatt hour, I think. That's what needs to be happening. It needs to be mandated by government. All new homes must have this. All new homes must have a high level of insulation. All new homes must. It will make them more expensive. Then what you do is you provide grants. For example, it's been mandated all new homes in Italy that have must have a charging station in them for electric cars. So if you automatically have a charging station, then you're more likely to buy an electric car when you're replacing your old one. Anyway, guys, sorry, I want to show you this funny comedy video, and then we'll be back again in just a moment. Here we go.
Colin is in Portsmouth and he is delighted with the mini budgets.
I am disgusted, Anthony, absolutely disgusted. Well, I was pleased initially.
Right.
Giving city traders more money seemed like the sensible thing to do. And now they repay us by sinking the economy and making Kwasi Kwarteng a laughingstock? No, not having it,
Well,
not having it.
it's a pity for Liz Truss. I mean, the first 3 hours of her leadership seemed really promising.
You know, I'm having second thoughts about these bankers. I'm beginning to suspect they don't have this country's best interests at heart.
Well, it's time then to perform a U-turn, isn't it? A dramatic U-turn to get things back to normal.
Anthony, steady on, steady on. We can't be giving Keir Starmer open goals. I say let sleeping dogs lie. Forgive and forget, you know.
Right.
Maybe we didn't give those bankers enough money. I mean, can you imagine the chaos if we returned everything back to normal? It don't bear thinking
Well,
about.
the trouble is people won't be able to afford their mortgages, Colin.
Oh, give over. We wanted to return to the 70s, didn't we?
True.
So let's have 70s mortgage rates. It don't affect me because I've paid mine off.
Yeah.
But if you don't like it, move.
Well, if it's the Tories making tough decisions, then so should the rest of the country. It's only fair, Colin.
Doing your bit,
Yeah.
innit? Or is that illegal nowadays? Anyway, you won't starve. There's plenty of bankers that'll buy your undervalued house off you, and they'll give you a fair price. You can rely on them.
They can use the money they made from shorting the pound. It's trickle-down economics.
Exactly. Everyone's a winner.
Yeah.
Anyway, mate, thanks for having me on. Love to the family.
Love to the family, Colin.
Oh my goodness. Go back to the 1970s. The 1970s mortgages were at what, 17%? Anyway, Liz Truss has had to be convinced to issue a statement amid market turmoil after mini budget. Oh my goodness. It says here, faced with market turmoil, spiking borrowing costs and a drop in the value of the pound in exchange foreign exchange markets, the Prime Minister's initial instinct was to stand firm and say little or nothing, unwilling to look she might be shifting position. She turns around like a bloody spinning wheel, whatever you call it, top. So this was the moment she said, no, I'm actually going to stick to my guns. So when it came to Brexit, instead of actually taking a dignified position, she went, no, to hell with that. I'm going to jump on board the Brexit bus. When it came to the monarchy, the same thing. When it came to being a Liberal Democrat, no, to hell with that. There's a career opportunities in the Conservatives, and I'll jump ship there too. But when it came to actually doing a proper U-turn and saying, actually, I got it wrong, maybe we should do something. No, her first response was, no, this time I'll stick to my guns. Pathetic. However, after a meeting with the Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng yesterday, Ms Truss agreed the Treasury would issue a statement promising further details on the 23rd of November. The 23rd of November. So we're not going to do anything. We need to take action. How long? Today? No, let's give it a week. No, a bit more than that. Okay, 10 days? No. 23rd of November. What? Was it just under 2 months? 23rd of November, and how the government would ensure borrowing would not spiral out of control. 23rd of November. So businesses have to go to the wall. People are struggling at the moment and they're not able to pay their bills and feed their families. But don't worry, on the 23rd of November, we'll tell you what we plan to do. Like, why 23rd of November? In effect, this gives the government 8 weeks to come up with a plan to stabilise the markets. We're sinking. Give us about 8 hours to come up with a solution to stop the water. Yes, but we're sinking now. No, it doesn't matter. Just wait. Give us a few hours. 8 hours. That should be enough. 8 weeks in this case. The markets are destabilized now. Anyway, likely to include spending cuts in Whitehall, public services, investment, and probably welfare. So austerity 2.0. So this is the Tory solution. Okay, we fucked up. We borrowed a load of money. We can't pay it back. The reason that we can't pay it back is, well, because we fucked up. And the markets aren't happy about it, but don't worry. Our solution will be probably to cut public services. There. That should help that should make the markets happy again. The government will, and to hell with ordinary people who rely on these public services because, they don't donate to the Conservative Party. And I said this before, guys. If you want the Tories to do something for you, you just throw them £10,000. I don't see what the problem is. There was a funny sketch on I think it was Harry Enfield. It was from a few years ago, many years ago now, actually. It was in black and, these black and white ones that they have. And it was like some ridiculously rich guy who was like, he says, "Oh, I think I should get married." And he sees a lady coming down the stairs and he goes, "Would you like to, I think we should get married next Saturday." "Okay." And then he's like, "Oh, maybe I need a house. Banker over there," at his party. "Banker, can you give me a check for £100,000? "Yeah, sure. Don't you need to check my credit?" Or, "No, well, I believe you. You're an honest gentleman." So it's absolutely ridiculous. But this is the sort of mentality that the Tories have. Anyway, the government will reject claims circulating in Whitehall that the meeting between Ms Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng was argumentative and descended into a shouting match. Yeah, I can imagine. Kwarteng was saying, the pound has dropped. And she was probably saying, "No, I have the money in my hand here. I didn't drop it on the floor." No, he said, no, the pound, the value of the pound has dropped. She said, "But if I just keep putting £5 of petrol into my car, that's still the same, no?" "No, you idiot." Something like that. Anyway, this comes as the Chancellor plans to hold further emergency meetings with global bankers this week to discourage them from speculating on the pound. It's like, I can imagine the meeting. "Yes, hello everyone, I'm the Chancellor of the Exchequer. Yeah, I know, I'm the new one. Yeah, I know there was a guy here a few weeks ago, but I'm the new one. Okay. And you're international bankers. Okay, what I'd like you to do is, please, can you stop speculating on the pound? Why shouldn't we? Because it's naughty. It doesn't make us look good. So please don't do that. I would be really happy." There is deep concern in the city that Treasury ministers are still gunning for Andrew Bailey, the Governor of the Bank of England, and his two most senior lieutenants, with some believing that removing his team from office would dent Britain's global reputation for stability. No, come on. Britain's global reputation for stability. Who believes Britain is stable at the moment? Have they just come out of a coma? Sky News can confirm that Monday's meeting between the Chancellor and the Prime Minister concentrated on whether to issue a statement and what to say, with the two sides initially taking different positions. So Liz Truss would probably, "Don't say anything," and Kwasi Kwarteng was saying, "No, we need to say something." I just want to read the last part here. It says, Tory MPs have expressed huge concern on what some of them regard as a reckless gamble, spending billions of pounds on tax cuts for the rich, which has spooked the markets. Some in Number 10 are believed, wait till you hear this, some in Number 10 are believed to blame the Tory unrest on the failure of ministers and their teams to properly explain their plans. So the reason why the pound has crashed is nothing to do with the markets not believing that the government is serious, but it's because of the messaging. So they didn't explain it correctly. Yeah, we're going to give tax cuts to the rich. Oh, no, we shouldn't have said it like that. We should have said it in some other way. We're going to remove banker bonuses, the cap on banker bonuses. No, we can't say that. We need to say it in a different way. These people actually believe this. Some around Truss think this all just needs to be explained better. I'd love to know who this person was. Said one business source familiar to the conversations in Number 10. And then this part, it says, some in government are understood to see the market assault on the pound and the government debt as a plot by the left. Something which has surprised city traders. So it's not Liz Truss's fault. It's not Kwasi Kwarteng's fault. It's Labour's fault. Or maybe Jeremy Corbyn's fault. I don't know, just, pull Jeremy Corbyn in here if possible. So this is probably the greatest phrase of the week. Some in government are understood to see the assault on the pound and government debt as a plot by the left. So Kwasi Kwarteng didn't really want to eliminate the top rate of income tax He was tricked into it by Keir Starmer. Maybe Keir Starmer could trick him into, I don't know, imposing a windfall tax on the energy companies. And the ending of the cap on the banker bonuses, this is also Labour tricking the Tories. And so it's not that Liz Truss is stupid, it's that the Labour Party are good at making her look stupid. Jesus Christ. Freddie, thanks so much for that super chat. Sounds exactly like the banks in the 2008 crash. Yes, this is what it's all about. It's about deregulating. And it's not just banks, it's also insurance companies and so many other sectors. It's about deregulating. This is what I said before about Brexit. Brexit was disaster capitalism. And part of that disaster capitalism was the deregulation. Now, you had Nigel Farage and others who were celebrating deregulation. They were saying, yeah, this is how we're going to stimulate the economy. This is how we're going to have a new global Britain if we deregulate. They sold deregulation as something positive. But we saw what happened with deregulation back in 2008. It crashed the economy. People lost their homes. People lost their businesses. People lost their pensions. People lost their jobs. It brought in an era of austerity by the Tories, which saw a massive jump in food banks. Very, very, the catalyst was how all of this is connected. All of these, actions taken in the United States have an impact in Europe. Actions taken in Europe have an impact around the world. That's, we can't get away from that. That's why we need to have robust systems in place. But robust systems make it more difficult for people to speculate. And the Tories said to the people who were, well, not the Tories, specifically the Brexiteers, said, you donate to our party, you donate to our organisation or our campaign, and we'll make sure that you can gamble as much as you want, and no one's going to lift a finger against you. Thanks for it, Freddie B. Nodiasi, thanks so much for that super chat. Quasi, Truss, Courtang are like the football managers who lost his job and blamed the media for reporting the scores. You have to laugh, but yeah, it's true. It's exactly like that. See, if we were completely in control of the media, then we could say banker bonuses was a good idea. The cap on getting rid of the cap on banker bonus was a good idea. The markets would. I don't know how you'd hide this because we have access to international media, but it's very difficult to hide this information. Like if the markets say the economy is not going to work, it's very difficult to hide this because the Financial Times is not controlled by the British government, not yet anyway. Bloomberg, these ones who report on this, and it's their job to present as factual information as possible. You can't really, they're not really into spin because then they won't sell any newspapers. People rely on them because they are reliable. They're not the Daily Mail or the Express. Thanks for that super chat. Yeah, it was about it's the media's fault for reporting the scores. Oh my god. Okay, we're almost at the end of the stream, guys. I just wanted to I'll just cover this quickly and then we can move on to the Italy story. Just one Italy story I wanted to talk quickly about. But it says here, more mortgage providers will pull deals over rate rise fears. About half of the UK mortgage providers have suspended their offer of home loan buying products, and more have hiked rates as a result of the volatile market. This will mean that it will become more and more difficult for people to access mortgages because a lot of these packages have been taken off the market. This is very bad because you have a housing crisis. People can't afford to buy homes. This will mean it will become even more difficult to get on the property ladder because the banks are saying, well, actually, this is going to cause a credit crisis, a credit crunch, as we saw back in 2007, 2008, where people just can't get loans from the banks. I remember back in 2007, 2008, when businesses needed to access credit the banks would not give it. So businesses were not able to buy material, because what they would normally do is, with a credit note, they would go to the bank and say, look, here's an invoice, or here's an order, for material to build a house, for example, bricks or blocks or whatever. They would take that to the bank would give them the money, they would buy the material, they would pay for the material, and then when the money came, when they sold the goods, then they would get the money and they would give it back to the bank. But or something like that. I don't remember exactly. But businesses needed access to credit. They needed access to this money, but the banks were not giving it. So they were not able to order things, or they were not able to pay for things that they had ordered, which was a big problem. We could be going back to something like that. And also there was foreclosure, so people were not able to pay their mortgages, and they lost their homes. I'm starting a crowdfunder. Paul, thanks so much for that super chat. I'm concerned about the education in private schools for MPs. Help needed with 3 R's: reading, writing, and arithmetic. Thank you so much, Paul. It's nice to have a little bit of comedy in these dark times. Reading, writing, arithmetic. I love it. Thanks so much for that. I'll happily donate to your crowdfunder. John, thanks so much for that super chat. Are you hoping for the FT to be nationalised? No. I think that would be not a good idea. Then it would be, yes, the government are doing a wonderful job. And then the newspaper closes down. Do Virgin Money only lend to first-time buyers? Is that a joke? I don't know if that's a joke. Maybe it's a joke. But maybe they do. I don't know. Quasi at bad counting. They have blamed King Charles. King Charles yet? Not yet. GB News is on a sort of honeymoon period with the royal family, but give it a few weeks and they'll be calling King Charles, I don't know, a tree-hugging hippie who's bringing down the royal family from within or something. Voting Lib Dem, stuff New Labour, Keir Starmer. Jean-Luc. I might vote Lib Dems or Independent MP. Quasimodo, Blunder Truss, sharing a brain cell. I love some of these comments. Max just checked now. Pound versus dollar 107. Bank of England has to act. Yeah, so it's not it was at 108 just before the statement. It dropped down to 103. I think now it's back up to 107. It's not recover. If the bank has already said they're going to raise interest rates and it isn't really helped, then what they're going to have to do is make an emergency statement and raise interest rates higher. But then every action has a consequence, and raising interest rates will of course make it more difficult to borrow and make borrowing more expensive, I should say, and this is going to harm the economy. I think what the goal is, and I think it was Richard Murphy who said this, the goal is to engineer a recession. So the Bank of England want a recession and the fastest way of doing that is to raise interest rates. So there's talk of interest rates going up to maybe 6%. Now that would mean that's not 6% on your mortgage, that's 6% from the central bank. So you're talking about maybe 10, 12, 13% mortgages. That's going to bring about a recession. And then what happens with the recession is there's mass unemployment. People are not buying goods and services, so the value of the goods and services drop, and that brings down inflation. The Bank of England's goal is not to stimulate the economy. It's not to fix problems. It's just to bring down inflation. They have a goal of 2%. So they can do that if there is the recession is. It's like throwing the hand grenade into the room. That's the only way to fix this. That's the way they see it. It's not actually trying to change something around the edges. No, now they realize is we have to bring the whole house of cards down. When it's a depression, or a depression even worse than that. Trying to live on £117 a week ESA is impossible. Any Labour government is better than any Tory government. And that's where it needs, sorry to hear that, Colin, Jesus. Like, how are I also think of people who are carers. They get £69 a week. How are you supposed to look after yourself and someone who needs care on 69? Of course, there's this idea, well, they're carers, they'll probably do it for free. Yes, they would do it for free because they care about the person they're looking after. But it's much more expensive to care for someone who's disabled or who has serious mobility issues than if they're able-bodied. They're able to move around, especially during a cost of living crisis. The carers allowance should be at least doubled. And raise a tax for that if necessary. There are multimillionaires and billionaires benefiting from this tax cut. That the tax should actually be increased. Oh, but they'll move away. Well, not all of them. Some of them may. But these are people who have invested in very expensive accountants to find ways around not paying tax. So if they fuck off to another country, well then so be it. Most of them threaten to leave and don't leave. How many times have you heard about millionaires? It was some rock star was saying, oh, if they tax me more, I'm going to move out of the country. They did tax him more and he didn't move. They're in the country because there's benefits in being in the country. This idea of threatening to leave because of taxes generally is an empty threat. It's a way of saying, oh, you shouldn't be taxing people like us. Anyway, we'll get to the final story here. At the beginning of the stream, I just mentioned I was asked about Italy and what's happening. Well, this could be some good news. Italy, Salvini faces call to quit as League chief after dismal election results. So the leader of Italy's far right League, with so many far right parties, it's like a menu, Do you like it fascist? Do you like it crypto-fascist? Do you like it quasi-fascist? Do you like it fascist light? Do you like it full-on fascist? Or do you like it semi-fascist? Anyway, far-right League Matteo Salvini is facing calls to resign from senior figures within his party after a dramatic fall in his support in Sunday's general election and saw it routed in its northern heartlands. Here in Veneto, where I live, it seems they switched from the League Party to the Brothers of Italy Party. And I think a lot of that is not ideological. It's like, let's give Meloni a go. And I've heard that from some people. I don't know. I didn't ask them if they actually voted for her, but I've heard that from some people who are saying, yeah, let's give her a chance. It's not a good reason to vote for a fascist. We saw how that worked out last time. But I don't think I think there was an idea that, this is another right wing. I know I always vote right wing. Let's vote right wing for another. I'll vote for another right wing party. So you could sort of see how, especially in the north of Italy, the support for the League Party dropped and it increased for Brothers of Italy. This is Meloni's party. Anyway, the party is a member of the fellow far right leader Giorgia Meloni's triumphant coalition, but its share of the vote fell 9%, an abysmal result for a party that in 2019 was polling at almost 40%. It's time for a new leader. Roberto Maroni, former leader of the League and ex-Lombardy governor, wrote in a column in the daily newspaper Il Foglio. I know who should be elected as the new party secretary, but I'm not naming names for now. Salvini was very popular back in 2019, and then he messed up, and he tried to play. Well, it says here his call came amid reports in the Italian press that Salvini will not be reappointed Interior Minister by Meloni, a role that he held from 2018-2019 when in coalition with the Five Star Movement and attempted to block migrants from landing in Italian ports. Salvini used to be extremely popular, then he lost his charm, and it seems that Meloni has taken up that mantle. When I say there's perhaps a silver lining here, is that the League Party used to be big fish. They used to be top dog, and now they have been pushed very much down the ranking, and this may create a bitterness within them. And they have been bitter before. They're not good players. They're not good team members. And there's a possibility that they could pull out their support, and they could encourage others to pull their support as well, especially if they believe that not so much that Meloni is not doing what's good, what they see as good for Italy. The League Party don't care about Italy. They don't care about improving the economy or anything like it, making the economy work for people. They care about power. That's all. They're like Tories, okay? They don't care about the country. They care about power. And Meloni is a bit like that. So you're going to have people in coalition together who are jockeying for position. Now, Meloni has the biggest party, but if members of the League or other parties feel that they could gain something by pulling their support for the coalition, then the thing could come crashing down in a few months' time. So coalitions are good for democracy, but bad for government. So there is a possibility that, she's going to mess up. Some people are describing her as this wonderful visionary. I don't think so. I think she's telling people pretty much what they want to hear, and she's using very sort of old language, language we've heard before from the likes of Farage and others. They're telling us what to do. They're trying to destroy the family. They're trying to destroy Christianity in this country. They. She never actually identifies who they are. Who are they? So it's very, it's easy to point to this invisible enemy and say, I'm fighting this invisible enemy, this enemy of they, and convince the public that they need to be angry with them as well. We never know who they are. We're never told, because as soon as you were to discover who they are, the mystery is lost. The power the far right have over you dissipates. And this is very important for people to remember. When somebody's telling you or trying to convince you to be angry about something, try to understand, why do you want me to be angry with this group of people? How do you benefit from telling me to be angry? That's what's important. I've always wondered who they are. Yes, we'll never know who they are, because, as I said, as soon as we discover who they are, the mystery is gone, and the power that the right have over people dissipates. They always create enemies. For Salvini, it was people arriving from North Africa in boats, which ironically, Salvini was not. Officially, Salvini was against this. But if you dig a bit deeper, you realize that he was not really against it, because many farmers, especially in the south of Italy, where the League were winning votes, many of these farmers employ these immigrants. They work on their farms. Now, a lot of them are working illegally, but a lot of them are employed there. So if the government were to actually crack down on this, it would be a problem for the people who vote for these parties. So on the one hand, they'll say we're against immigration, but in reality, they won't really put in measures against it, because they realize that their voter bloc, their voter base, need these people, especially when it comes to farming, for example, or business. Many businesses, particularly in the south of Italy, rely on migrant workers, and many of them are not paid correctly. Many of them don't have protections. They're part of the black economy, and if this constant tap of workers was closed or cut off, then these business owners would come knocking at the door of these parties and say, I'm sorry, do you want us to support you? Why are you creating problems for us? So the rhetoric and the implementation of the rhetoric are two completely different things. Max, do you know what's going on with Italian bond yields? I haven't seen that. Alec, thanks so much for that super chat. Apologies, I can't check on that. As far as I know, the UK is outperforming bond yields. So while Italy and Greece are normally in a pretty bad position, the UK is doing better, world beating on bond yields. So the higher the bond yield, it's bad for the. For example, Germany has very low bond yields because there's a high level of confidence in the government's ability to pay them back. So they're not much of a risk. The higher the bond yield, the higher the risk. And I think the UK has superseded that of Italy and Greece at the moment. Apologies, I can't give you the data, Alec. I don't have it in front of me. Maybe catastrophic capitalists. The only complaining after they got the workers, Max, mafia run agriculture in Italy. Yes. Max, what's going on with the Prosecco and mascarpone cheese futures? I don't know. I haven't checked. The voting system needs reforming as Labour Tories are not your best interest if you're not rich. It'd be interesting to see what happens with the Conservatives going forward. So we're almost at the end of the stream, guys. I want to say thanks so much to everyone who came on. Thanks for smashing the like button. Thanks for all of the support, the super chats, and your comments. Matt, can you give me the lottery numbers for Thursday? Sure. They are 7, 23, 72, 12, 26, 19, and 4. Now, if that works and you win the lottery, you have to send me half. Okay. So I want to say thanks to everyone who came on. Thanks for all of your support. Thanks for the super chats and thanks for smashing the like button. And of course, thank you to the moderators for doing a wonderful job. Remember, after the stream, we have our post-stream chat on Discord. So if you're a supporter on Patreon, you can access that. If you have any problems with... Also, this is for people. This is a shout out to people who are accessing Patreon. If you have any problems, please do send me a message. I try to check them as often as possible. There have been some problems accessing Discord, but we should have it sorted out. But if you do have problems, do let me know, or some of the moderators if I don't see your comment. So, guys, have a great week. I'll see you on Friday. Same bad time, same bad channel. And otherwise, have a great week. But before we go, we have our one for the road. Let me bring this up.
So, Minister, the reaction to your mini-budget has been generally quite negative, hasn't it? Not true. I was talking to several economists earlier today who said our fiscal event was smashing, that I was looking very well, and have I been working out? The opinion polls have been pretty damning. That's because people don't know that we're going to create a high-wage economy. By giving them pay rises? God no. We want people to set up their own businesses. Maybe build a local version of a hospital, or a fire station, or a police force. Because let's be clear, we have no money left to fund those. On my screen, I'm seeing that the pound is dropping in value as we speak. Well, that's fine. We're not interested in what the markets think. Actually, looking at this graph, it looks like the pound may be rallying. Oh, thank God for that. We always knew the markets would come round eventually, and we are delighted to have their confidence. No, sorry, I was looking at the wrong way round. The pound is actually crashing again. It's all nonsense and we don't care. Why do you think the markets have reacted to your plans by selling the pound? Who says it's because of our plans? I mean, the Queen just died. Maybe looking at lots of pictures of her face made them sad. What? Or maybe they're worried that because of what the mainstream media are saying, there could be a Labour government next, and they're panicking in advance, which is actually quite sensible. The pound has dropped even further. It's approaching parity with the dollar. Well, at least that'll make holidays to America less confusing. No need to check a currency calculator all the time. Because you know you won't be able to afford anything? Precisely. I mean, sources in the city have warned us that they're worried that you don't have a plan to balance the books. We absolutely do have a plan for balancing the books, and we'll be revealing it in November. Why not now? Have you not actually written it yet? We absolutely have written it. We just think it would sound better in November. You know, accompanied by fireworks. And yet, because you haven't reassured the market, your borrowing costs will be much higher the longer you leave it. Yes, we wanted that. Did you think we were trying to play government on easy mode? And as you said that, the pound dropped another 2 points. This is just the beginning. There is so much more to come. Another 3 points down. Taxation is theft. And another 4. If you'll excuse me, I just need to make a phone call. Thank you, Minister. Sell it all! Next up, as NASA smashes a spaceship into a distant asteroid, we ask, what would you like to smash a spaceship into? And which members of the cabinet should be on a distant asteroid?
Wonderful, wonderful as always. So guys, have a great week, and I'll see you on Friday, same bad time, same bad channel. And as always, be safe. Take care. Good night.